You're getting older, your joints are hurting, your eyesight is getting worse, and your mind is slowing down. It's all just normal aging, right? In this video, I'm going to challenge our conventional beliefs of aging and vision loss, and I'm going to discuss evidence-based tactics and strategies to help you preserve your vision while also improving your long-term physical and cognitive health. By the way, I'm Dr. Michael Chua. I'm a board-certified ophthalmologist with Puente Hills Eye Care. We're now in an incredible era in medicine. We have gene therapy like Luxturna, which allows us to treat blind patients with inherited retinal disease. We have surgical robots like the Da Vinci system, which allows surgeons to do surgery with more precision than ever before, while also giving patients shorter recovery times. And now we have artificial intelligence, or AI, designing new antibiotics to fight drug-resistant infections. And despite all of these groundbreaking advances, modern medicine has been much less successful against chronic diseases, such as diabetes, heart disease, dementia, and in the case of ophthalmology, diseases like glaucoma and macular degeneration. Historically, things like infections, trauma, and cataracts were the leading causes of blindness. But now, the leading causes of blindness, particularly in developed countries around the world, are caused by chronic diseases like glaucoma, macular degeneration, and diabetic retinopathy. This is a very interesting study from 2008. In which researchers were able to investigate medical records from US Civil War veterans in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So this study gives us an interesting peek at what eye health looked like for adults in the early 1900s. We see that 9.4% of veterans were considered to have low vision or blindness. And of these veterans with low vision or blindness, the leading cause was cataract, which was found in 59%, then corneal opacities in 34.7%. These corneal opacities, or basically corneal scars, were likely related to trauma, probably war-related trauma, and could have also been caused by corneal infections or ulcers. The next leading cause of blindness was trachoma in 24.5%. Trachoma is an infectious eye disease caused by chlamydia. The chlamydia bacteria causes inflammation and scarring of the soft pink tissue around the eye called the conjunctiva. The inflammation of the conjunctiva can cause scarring on the inside of the eyelids and can cause the eyelashes to turn inwards. And as they constantly rub on the cornea, it can cause corneal infections and scarring, leading to blindness. So if you look at the three most common causes of blindness from the 1900s, they were cataracts, which are now readily treated with surgery, corneal scars, which are less common because of improved eye protection, as well as better antibiotics to treat corneal infections. And even if you do have a corneal scar, we can now do corneal transplants to restore your vision. And trachoma has largely been eradicated in the developed countries thanks to antibiotics and improved sanitation. So basically, the most common causes of blindness just over 100 years ago have all been solved. This reflects the triumph of modern medicine. We have become incredibly good at treating acute conditions like infections or trauma with wonderful medications and refined surgical techniques. But if we now look at the most common causes of eye diseases and poor vision in modern times, we see where our doctors and the medical community has much room for improvement. Here's one of the largest and most comprehensive reports on eye disease published from the Prevent Blindness Organization. The first sentence of the report is, "The leading cause of vision impairment and blindness in the United States are primarily age-related eye diseases, namely age-related macular degeneration, cataract, diabetic retinopathy, and glaucoma." Thankfully, cataracts are a problem we can now solve with surgery, but for the other three diseases, we don't have a cure. These diseases, macular degeneration, glaucoma, and diabetic retinopathy, they cause damage to the retina and optic nerve. Unfortunately, when the retina or optic nerve is injured, the damage is done. Just like in a spinal cord injury, we don't have the ability to regenerate or regrow new retina or optic nerve tissue. So when we're treating these diseases, we're just trying to manage them. There's no cure, and in most cases, we can't reverse the damage that is done as the disease progresses. Oftentimes, patients come to see us when they already have noticed new visual problems. When the vision changes are noticeable though, that's actually pretty far along the disease course, when it's likely that the disease has been festering for perhaps decades before becoming visually significant. So us eye doctors intervene with treatments, but it's already relatively late when vision has already been lost, and now our back is up against the wall and the stakes are high. In the case of macular degeneration and diabetic retinopathy, we use treatments like intravitreal injections or lasers to kill diseased retina tissue, which can help protect your remaining vision. But these interventions can be painful, expensive, and have serious side effects. In the case of glaucoma, we have different medications, which all have potential side effects, or lasers and surgery, which also can have potential complications. And let's zoom out of ophthalmology and vision science for a moment and look at overall physical health. According to a report from the CDC, the three most common causes of death in 1900 were pneumonia, tuberculosis, and diarrhea and enteritis. But if we fast forward to 2022, the latest data we have available, we see that the majority of the causes on the list are chronic diseases. With the exception of accidental injury and COVID-19, we see that the most common causes of death are heart disease, cancer, stroke, lung disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, kidney disease, and chronic liver disease. Do you see the trend? All three of the most common causes of death in 1900 have basically been solved by modern medicine and antibiotics, and have, for the most part, been replaced with chronic disease. And so what we're seeing is that diseases associated with aging, things like heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, and diabetes, are the diseases that are killing us. And eye diseases associated with aging, like glaucoma, macular degeneration, and diabetic eye disease, are what's blinding us. But thanks to recent research from pioneers in ophthalmology, like Dr. Ann Coleman at UCLA, or one of my professors from residency, Dr. Louis Pasquale, or Dr. Emily Chua at the National Eye Institute, we are now just starting to uncover and understand different risk factors and lifestyle changes we can make to prevent these major chronic eye diseases. And you'll notice as we go through several studies that many of them have been published just over the last few years. So there hasn't really been enough time for this new data to trickle down to medical school and residency curricula. So my belief is that we are now at a critical juncture in medicine, where we are beginning to transition into a new era of medicine and ophthalmology, in which we use personalized strategies using lifestyle changes and good habits now to help prolong the time we have with good vision and good health, rather than waiting for the problems to become so severe that we are almost forced to use invasive intervention to save someone's vision and someone's life. Recent research is continuing to show us that the process of aging and preserving our vision is much more under our control than previously thought. Our fate isn't just set in stone by our DNA. Epigenetics is an emerging area of scientific research that shows how our environment and behaviors can actually affect the expression of our genes. Our genome consists of all the DNA we inherited from our parents that make each of us unique. But layered on top of our DNA are a bunch of chemical marks and tags that can determine whether a gene is turned on or off. This collection of marks is called the epigenome. And as we go through life, through our environment and our lifestyle choices, our diet and our experiences, we are constantly rearranging our epigenome. And that epigenome is ultimately what controls our genome or our DNA. So there's this common question in science and medicine of nature versus nurture. That is, are our health outcomes more dependent on our DNA and genetics, or is it more affected by our environment and lifestyle choices? Well, the answer is both. Don't get me wrong, are there some people that can have certain genes and therefore may develop specific diseases no matter how many green smoothies they drink or how many Pilates classes they go to? Yeah, absolutely. And conversely, are there some people that lucked out with certain genes and somehow live more than 100 years old despite drinking alcohol and smoking regularly? Also, yeah. But for the vast majority of people, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. It all matters, both our genes and our lifestyle. And so with an intelligent approach backed by science, we can make lifestyle choices to affect our genes and help us see clearly and live healthily for as long as possible. So I'm going to break down the tactics into three simple sections. They are diet, exercise, and sleep. These are the three pillars which support our physical health. And when one or more of these pillars are deficient, our health can be severely compromised. To put everything simply, in general, the most common problems I see as a doctor is that we overeat, underexercise, and undersleep. So as a simple framework, we need to eat less, move more, and sleep more. But as I dive into each of these recommendations in depth, I'm going to first start by explaining the why. I'll explain the underlying physiology and evidence for these recommendations. My thought is, if we understand clearly the benefits that we'll enjoy from making certain lifestyle changes and why these particular habits will actually work in helping us live longer, healthier lives, then I think we'll have a higher chance of creating lasting changes to improve our vision and our health. And by the way, a lot of the information in this video is based off of the incredible work of Dr. Peter Attia in his book Outlive, Dr. David Sinclair in his book Lifespan, Dr. Chris Van Tulloken and his book Process People, and Dr. Matthew Walker in his book, Why We Sleep. If you're interested to learn more about what we cover in this video, check out their books to do some deep dives into the latest research on improving our overall health. So let's get into each section and build a useful framework for healthy vision and longevity. The first section is diet. In order to understand how our diet influences our vision and our overall health, let's first look at the physiology of metabolism. So metabolism is the process of how we consume nutrients, then break them down for use or store them in our body. So let's take, for example, this delicious chocolate chip cookie. When you eat it, your body needs to decide what to do with the calories from the cookie. The first possible destination is that the carbohydrates from the cookie is stored as glycogen, or the storage form of glucose. Glycogen is a useful short-term storage solution for energy in our bodies. About 75% of glycogen is stored in our skeletal muscles, and about 25% is stored in our liver. And if you're physically active, for example, running or jogging or exercising, then these calories and glucose will be used by your muscles. But if you're sedentary or laying around and resting, there's no stimulus to break down your glycogen stores. And there's only a finite amount of glycogen that you can store in your body. So all those excess calories will need to be stored somewhere. So the second possible destination of your excess calories is for it to be stored in fat cells. And we have an incredible ability to store energy in the form of fat in our body. We can think of our fat storage as kind of like a metabolic storage warehouse. In times of excess consumption, we store all the extra energy in the form of fat. Then, in times where we might be spending extra energy, for example, on a long hike or jog, then the fat can be broken down and energy can be released for use by muscles. Problems begin to occur though when we continue to consume calories in excess to what our body is using. First, the fat is stored as subcutaneous fat, which are our fat stores located just under our skin. This is the fat we can see build up around our abdomen, our butts, and our thighs. But our bodies are only able to store so much energy in subcutaneous fat. If we continue to be in a state of excess energy consumption, eating too many calories while remaining sedentary, then this fat buildup can also infiltrate into our vital organs, including our heart, our muscles, and our kidneys. This more dangerous type of fat is what we call visceral fat. And this visceral fat is linked to increased inflammation in the body, as well as increased risk of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes. After we eat a cookie and we break it down in our GI tract and absorb the glucose into our bloodstream, our body needs to decide where to send that glucose. And this decision is driven mostly by a hormone called insulin. Insulin is a hormone released by our pancreas. You can think of insulin as a key that unlocks specific receptors on different cells, which allows glucose to enter. Usually, if our blood glucose levels begin to rise, then our insulin levels rise also to help remove excess glucose from the bloodstream by shuttling it into muscle and fat cells. This helps us maintain relatively stable levels of glucose in our blood. If we are physically active, then a lot of these calories we eat are going to be sent straight to our muscles where the energy will be used. But if we are at rest and not depleting our glycogen stores, then that energy will be sent to our fat cells instead. The invasion and accumulation of excess fat in our muscles is thought to be one of the primary drivers of what's called insulin resistance. As we develop more and more fat in our muscle cells, they become almost deaf or numb to insulin. That is, even though they are exposed to the same amounts of insulin, their glucose receptors still aren't opening to let glucose in. So the cells in our body will start to require more insulin just to let glucose into the cells and out of the bloodstream. That pushes the pancreas into overdrive, because it will start needing to squirt more and more insulin into our bloodstream just to try to keep glucose levels in check. But at some point, the pancreas becomes overwhelmed and it just can't produce enough insulin to push glucose out of our bloodstream and into our muscles and fat cells. That's when blood glucose levels begin to rise and we start to see those high blood sugar levels in our blood work. And having increased blood levels of insulin and glucose for long periods of time can have serious consequences, including, of course, diabetes and its complications such as diabetic eye disease, diabetic retinopathy, and faster progression of cataracts, as well as kidney damage or nephropathy and nerve damage or neuropathy. These higher levels of glucose and insulin also increase the risk of other problems, such as atherosclerosis, cancer, and Alzheimer's dementia. So we see the effects of overconsumption on our organs and organ systems like our muscles, our fat, and our pancreas. But what about if we zoom in to the cellular and genetic level? Well, it's useful to think about the overall activity of each of our cells to be in one of two states. During times when there's plentiful energy, times are good, there's no stress on the cell is encouraged to grow and reproduce. However, when times are tougher, more adverse, for example, if there's less glucose floating around, or if the body's exercising and there's an increased demand for oxygen, then the cells shift towards survival mode. And so each of our cells prioritize protecting itself, repairing its DNA, and surviving. And so how do our cells know to be either in growth and reproduction mode versus survival mode? Well, scientists from around the world have found specific proteins, which we'll call the longevity proteins, that serve as our genetic survival switch. These particular proteins, namely sirtuins, TOR, and AMP kinase, allow our cells to sense whether there's plentiful protein or glucose in the cell to determine which mode our cells should be in. And what this research has shown is that when these longevity proteins have flipped the switch to survival mode, they activate our defenses against aging, pushing cells to prioritize repairing themselves, repairing proteins, as well as repairing our genome and epigenome. And so our goal is to figure out how we can stress our cells just enough to flip the switch to survival and longevity mode. I'll give you the spoiler. Countless studies are showing that the most effective way to do this are to eat less and exercise more. Unfortunately, the trends are showing that modern lifestyle is pushing us to do exactly the opposite. Let's look at how the rates of diabetes have changed over time. According to a 2022 CDC report, more than 29% of adults over the age of 65 have diabetes, and 38% of US adults have prediabetes. So about half of the US population either has type 2 diabetes or is on the way to getting it. And the interesting thing is, the pervasiveness of diabetes is a relatively new phenomenon for humanity. During primitive times, diabetes was a relatively unknown disease among hunter-gatherer tribes. It started to emerge in the 1700s and was more commonly seen in the ultra-wealthy, such as popes and merchants who could afford the luxury of buying sugar, which was very expensive at the time. Fast forward to the mid-1940s and the 1950s, Dr. Elliot Joslin, who started the world's first diabetes clinic, which is still around to this day in Boston, estimated that one person in every 3 to 400 had diabetes. And now, reviewing our most recent stats from the CDC in 2022, we see that 29% of adults over 65, almost 1 in 3, have diabetes. So, what is the explanation for the meteoric rise in the rates of diabetes in modern times? One leading theory is that our metabolism, which took millions of years to evolve, just isn't adapted to our modern diet. Our food environment has changed so dramatically in just the last 100 years that our digestive and energy pathways, which were more optimized for hunter-gatherer lifestyles, isn't as well suited for modern life. You see, our incredible ability to store fat throughout our body is a powerful adaptation that allowed early humans to survive harsh conditions. Fat storage was particularly useful for our ancestors when they needed to survive through periods of famine, cold winters, or just any time food was scarce. But all of this excess fat storage may actually be harmful in today's environment, where calories are readily available all the time. When you go down the grocery aisle or take a drive down Main Street, you'll quickly see the results of the modern food industrial complex. And as Dr. Peter Attia summarizes in his book Outlive, over the last 100 years, food manufacturers have created solutions optimized to solve several key problems. They've created food that is plentiful, enough to feed the masses. They made it inexpensive to make it more accessible and, of course, for their own bottom line and profit margins. They've made it tasty. They've used focus groups and food science engineers to design foods that are delectable and difficult to stop eating. And they made it shelf stable so that it can last on store shelves or in your pantry for long periods of time. But by optimizing for these variables, quantity, price, taste, and stability, there's another component that unfortunately becomes compromised. That's our long-term health. And now let's look at the average modern American diet. Here's a study from 2013 which looked at the results of a national nutritional survey which polled almost 17,000 American adults, teenagers, and children to see what types of foods Americans eat. So let's look at the calorie consumption based on food group. The number one food group, which accounted for the highest percentage of calories, 7.2%, was cakes, cookies, quick breads, pastries, and pies. Basically, ultra-processed, carbohydrate-rich desserts loaded with added sugars and fat. Coming in second was breads and rolls, another high source of carbohydrates and sugar. And the third food group was soda and soft drinks, which are also loaded with added sugar. Are you noticing a trend? Looking at a different study, this one from the British Medical Journal in 2015, researchers looked at data from 9,317 respondents who answered another national food survey, the National Health and Examination Survey. And let's take a look at what the results showed. They found that 57.9% of calories in the typical American diet came from ultra-processed foods such as breads, cakes, cookies, pies, salty snacks, frozen pre-made foods, and soda. These are similar confirmatory results that unfortunately show that the majority of the calories we consume these days is coming from ultra-processed foods, optimized again for taste, cheapness, shelf life, and accessibility, but not health. In terms of health, this food is trash. They're high in calories but low in nutrients. So, what is an ultra-processed food? These are mass-produced foods that are created using industrial ingredients not typically found in a home kitchen. These foods are shot up with so much added sugar and fat, sweeteners and emulsifiers, and artificial flavors, and although they may taste great, they're densely packed with calories, and unfortunately, you don't even feel full or satisfied even after eating them. This makes it difficult, almost impossible, not to overeat when you're consuming these foods. When you think of these ultra-processed foods, these are precisely designed tools that large food corporations have created to drive revenue at our health's expense. The general makeup of ultra-processed food is some large-scale crop like corn or soy, which is then deconstructed into its different molecular parts, like some sort of starch or flour, protein isolates. Then you sprinkle in some fats and oils and then glue it all together with artificial stabilizers and emulsifiers. Then you throw on some lipstick like food colorings, corn syrup, and what they call natural flavorings. Then you put it in beautiful foil or plastic packaging with a colorful box, and bam, you can now create any food from muffins to pizza to vegan sausage and display it on a shelf for several months. And just to really drive this point home, let's look at one last study. One of the most well-designed studies which we have to date, which uncovers the causal relationship between processed foods and weight gain. This is a study from the journal Cell Metabolism in 2019 from the NIH, or the National Institute of Health. In this study, researchers took 20 adults and randomized them to either receive a diet full of highly processed food or a diet of minimally processed whole foods for 2 weeks. Then, after 2 weeks, they switched the diet that each research subject was on. So, we have a randomized trial of 2 groups, and each participant tried both a processed food diet as well as a whole food diet. The other important component is that each research subject stayed at the NIH facility the entire time. That means that researchers were able to directly observe and measure every single calorie that each research subject ate. Both diets were controlled for the amount of calories, carbs, fats, proteins, and fiber content, and participants could eat as little or as much as they wanted. For example's sake, a processed breakfast would consist of something like a biscuit with a sausage patty with some ketchup, washed down with some Fruit Loops, while a minimally processed breakfast would look something like oatmeal with eggs, a banana, and a bowl of smashed avocados. And remember that the highly processed foods have added industrial ingredients like hydrogenated oils, high fructose corn syrup, salts, and emulsifiers, which you see often in fast foods and many packaged foods in the grocery store shelves and freezers. So, what did the results show? The researchers found that people on the processed food diet on average ate 500 calories more per day compared to patients who ate the minimally processed food diet. They also found that, on average, people on the processed food diet gained 1 pound, while people on the whole foods diet lost 1 pound, just after 2 weeks. The other interesting finding was that although people consumed a similar amount of protein between the 2 diets, it was an increased carbohydrate and fat intake, which accounted for the excess calories in the processed food group. So I think this study shows that it's dangerously easy to overeat and consume excess calories if we have a diet with a lot of processed foods. And when we eat these calorically dense foods in large quantities, we can quickly overwhelm our body's energy stores, causing us to add on fat in dangerous places like our vital organs, triggering the development of insulin resistance. We increase our risk of diabetes and all the visual complications it comes with, like increased rate of cataract progression, increased risk of glaucoma, and of course, diabetic retinopathy, which can cause retinal bleeding, swelling, and ultimately blindness. Increased body fat percentage has also been shown in multiple studies to increase our risk of developing macular degeneration. Okay, so now we understand the basics of metabolism and glucose regulation in the body. We now know that a large portion of the modern American diet is comprised of ultra-processed, high sugar, and high fat junk foods like cakes, cookies, and sodas. And we also understand the health risks that are associated with eating large amounts of these foods. Now we can start to dive into the specific changes we can make to our diet to optimize our health and our vision. The highest leverage activity you can do to maintain a diet that supports health and longevity is to cut the trash out. In terms of health outcomes, What you don't eat is just as important, or maybe even more important, than what you do eat. Those ultra-processed, calorically dense foods like chips, cakes, biscuits, pies, cookies, sugary breakfast cereals, candy, and soda are wrecking our health on a regular basis. So the first step is to remove these foods from your pantry, home, and office and keep them out. Just keep them away from you. Accessibility, convenience, and visibility have a huge influence on what we end up eating on a daily basis. If you have a convenient, tasty, ultra-processed snack waiting for you on the kitchen counter or pantry, what do you think you'll eat when you're feeling hungry or bored? By removing these foods from your diet as much as possible, you'll naturally cut your daily intake of calories because, as we saw in several research studies, these processed, sugary foods make up more than 50% of the calories in the typical American diet. And it's very easy to overeat on these types of foods. And I understand, it's tough or almost impossible to avoid these foods altogether. That's because large food corporations are paying top dollar to ensure that their products are waved around in our faces as much as possible. Sure, we can avoid the snack and soda aisles at the grocery store, but what's waiting for us at the checkout register? You guessed it, tasty, convenient junk food in beautiful, colorful foil packaging. And this is not some coincidence. A recent study from UC Davis found that 70% of the food and beverage items at the checkout aisle are unhealthy. They looked at checkout aisles at hundreds of grocery stores, drugstores, and big box stores throughout California and found that most checkout aisles were stocked with either candy, 31%, sugar-sweetened beverages, 11%, salty snacks, 9%, and sweets, 6%, compared to more healthy alternatives like water, 3%, nuts and seeds, 2%, fruits and vegetables, 1%, and legumes, 0.1%. And why is this the way it's set up? Well, it comes down to profit. These large food and beverage corporations have multi-million-dollar marketing contracts with big grocery stores and retailers to make sure that their products are sitting at the prime real estate of the store, the checkout aisle. And why are food corporations willing to spend such a large amount of their money to put their snacks and sodas at checkout? Because they know it works. They've done their research and they know that more than 25% of all candy sales occur at checkout. They know that if they position their products opportunistically, they'll push higher revenue and profits. And retailers, your local grocery stores, and big box stores know this information also. They know that placing snacks, candy, and soda in the checkout aisle continually perform well in terms of increasing average revenue per customer. So what happens? You buy your snacks, your candy, and your soda at the grocery store. The food corporation and its shareholders, they're happy with their profits. The grocery store is happy also because you spent more money at their store, and you're happy too because you get to eat a delicious, convenient snack. But who ultimately pays for this transaction? It's your future self and your future health. So we know our first step is to eliminate the junk from our diet. And just by doing that, we're going a long way in maintaining our metabolic and overall health. Okay, so we spent all this time talking about the foods we should be avoiding, but what foods should we be consuming? To put it simply, we're going to prioritize real, whole foods. I know there are plenty of fad diets out there, things like keto or paleo, Atkins, no carb, slow carb, but I prefer to avoid these trendy diets altogether and want to keep it as simple and as easy to follow as possible. The goal is to maintain a diet primarily of unprocessed and minimally processed foods. Things like vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, lean meat, fish, herbs, spices, and garlic. You want these foods to be the basis of your daily diet. The benefit of eating these unprocessed foods is that they're naturally loaded with fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Another natural benefit of these types of foods is that because they haven't been processed or refined by a warehouse, your gut needs to do a little bit of extra work to break everything down and digest it. This gives the body a chance to naturally regulate the absorption of energy from food to maintain relatively stable levels of glucose. Compare this to drinking something like a soda. There's already so much added sugar in the drink that it doesn't really need to be broken down or digested. All that sugar in the drink can be easily absorbed. Too easily absorbed into our GI tract. And this causes our blood sugars to spike and pushes our pancreas to fire lots of insulin just to keep up with this large influx of sugar. So we want to cut out junk processed foods and rely mainly on whole, real foods. The last topic I'll cover for this diet are the particular foods and vitamins that are beneficial to eye health. Now, many studies have shown the importance of dietary antioxidants on the prevention of eye diseases. For example, a review published in 2019 looked at several different antioxidants and their effects on cataract formation. They found that vitamin C, lutein, and zeaxanthin were found to have a protective effect against the development of cataract. Several other well-designed randomized control trials, such as the Age-Related Eye Disease Study, or AREDS, showed that supplementation with vitamin C, vitamin E, lutein, zeaxanthin, copper, and zinc have been shown to prevent the progression of age-related macular degeneration in patients with moderate and severe macular degeneration. Vitamin A serves an important role in the function of photoreceptors in the retina, and it also promotes tear production and improves tear quality, helping to prevent dry eye disease. And more recently, vitamin B3, also known as nicotinamide or niacin, has become a hot topic of research because it has been shown in several studies to help protect against the retinal nerve cell damage which causes blindness and glaucoma. There are now a few studies which have shown that patients receiving high-dose vitamin B3 supplementation actually improved retinal ganglion cell function as measured by visual field testing. This has spurred larger research interest, and there are currently larger scale randomized control trials ongoing throughout the world to investigate these possibly neuroprotective effects even further. We'll probably have more information regarding vitamin B3 in the next few years. So let's go through some of the best foods that you can eat for these particular vitamins we just mentioned. For vitamin C, citrus fruits such as oranges, grapefruits, lemons, and other fruits like cantaloupes, strawberries, as well as vegetables such as peppers, broccoli, tomatoes, and Brussels sprouts. For lutein and zeaxanthin, green leafy vegetables such as kale and spinach, as well as Brussels sprouts and eggs. For vitamin A, carrots, sweet potatoes, eggs, cantaloupes, bell peppers, kale, and spinach. For vitamin B3, poultry, fish, nuts, and seeds. Okay, so let's recap the key components of our vision protection and longevity diet. Number 1, avoid ultra-processed foods as much as possible in your diet, as they often lead to overconsumption as well as poor glucose regulation in your bloodstream. This increases the risk of several health problems including diabetes, heart disease, cancer, as well as eye diseases such as macular degeneration and diabetic eye disease. Number 2, aim to fill your diet with as many whole, minimally processed foods as possible. Things like fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, and lean meats, as they naturally contain fiber, vitamins, and minerals to help maintain good overall health, as well as vision health. Now, I understand that going from an ultra-processed diet to a whole foods diet will require you to spend more time and more money. And I don't agree with shaming people for going out and buying processed food or fast food either. Between work, childcare, other household errands, and obligations, it can be difficult to carve out the time and money to stick with a whole food diet. I mean, a big reason why these processed foods have become such a large proportion of our diet is because they're convenient. They're usually not perishable, they're ready to eat, and not too expensive. Remember our study from the NIH, the one that put patients either on a processed diet or on a minimally processed whole foods diet? They reported that it costed them, on average, $106 for the ingredients to prepare a week's worth of processed food, while a minimally processed diet required $151. So we're looking at a 43% increase in cost just for healthier ingredients. Not to mention the time you're spending in the produce section at the grocery store and all the time cleaning, prepping, and cooking the food. And since real food is often perishable, you have to track how you're storing everything to make sure your food doesn't go bad. So yes, this lifestyle change requires effort, but I think your health, your vision, and your future longevity is worth it. Some tips I have for saving time and money while still sticking to our vision and longevity diet are: use a grocery delivery service. Going to the grocery store once or twice a week to stock up on your produce and meat can suck a lot of time out of your day. I've personally embraced using Walmart Plus as my online grocery delivery service for the last year, and I highly recommend it. By the way, I have no financial affiliation with Walmart or any other brand for that matter. I have no affiliate codes or links, and I don't have anything to sell you. This is just a service that's worked for me. With Walmart Plus, you pay a membership fee, which at the time of this video is $98 per year, for free delivery on any orders over $35 from Walmart, including grocery items. And they'll deliver the items to you either the same day or the next day, depending on what time you order. You can do all of your grocery shopping in a couple of minutes, either on their website or through their app. I've personally had a very good experience with the service, and when you factor in that each grocery run can cost you up to an hour each time you go, the time savings adds up really quickly. I've had a few instances where they delivered the wrong item or forgot an item, but the customer service via the website or app is actually pretty responsive and very reasonable, with offering refunds or store credits for messed up orders. I also like that the prices on Walmart Plus match what you would pay in physical Walmart stores, so the prices are very competitive. You aren't paying a large markup for the delivery service like you would if, for example, you bought groceries using Instacart or Costco delivery, which is fulfilled through Instacart. Those services can charge a premium of 15 to 20% on each item, plus additional delivery fees. The next tip I have to help you save time while maintaining a whole foods diet is meal prep. So meal preparation, or meal prep, allows you to save time by cooking your meals in bulk, maybe once every week or once every few days, and individually portioning them to containers for future use. If you combine grocery delivery with meal prep, you can significantly cut down on the time and money you spend on food every month. Okay, so we covered diet in serious depth. The next topic we want to discuss for maintaining our vision and our health is exercise. If there is one habit that will help you live longer, but also maintain your health and quality of life, it's exercise, period. Exercise delays the onset and prevents the progression of many chronic diseases, including diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. It helps to prevent both physical and cognitive decline. And recent research is just now starting to uncover how powerful exercise is as a tool for longevity. Here's a figure from a 2020 study published in the British Medical Journal. In this study, researchers tracked CDC collected health survey data from almost 500,000 US adults to evaluate the relationship between exercise and mortality. They found that adults who engage in aerobic activity consistent with recommended guidelines, which are 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity per week, such as brisk walking, gardening, or dancing, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity per week, such as jogging, swimming, or playing singles tennis. People who did this aerobic exercise had a 29% decrease in the risk of dying. They also found that people who did muscle strengthening exercises, such as resistance training or weightlifting at least twice a week, enjoyed an 11% decrease in mortality. And for people who did both aerobic and muscle exercise, had a 40% decrease in the risk of death. I mean, that's remarkable. Imagine if there was a medication that you could put into a pill that has the same effect on health and longevity as exercise, decreasing your risk of death by 40%. That would, I think, be the most popular best-selling medication on the planet. Now, I understand you can poke holes in the study. First, it's a retrospective study based on survey data. You can question whether, is it really the exercise that's responsible for this decrease in death? Is it possible that people who exercise more also happen to have better diets? Maybe since they have enough spare time to exercise, they may tend to have higher income. Maybe they smoke less and drink less alcohol. I mean, absolutely, yes. The researchers did use statistics to try to remove the effects of confounding variables such as smoking status and alcohol intake to try to isolate the effect of exercise alone. But still, variables like nutrition and socioeconomic status could also be contributing to this mortality effect. However, there are a few key strengths of this study that really convinced me of the immense power of exercise on our health and well-being. First, it's repeatable. If you look up different clinical trials exploring the effects of exercise on longevity, you'll see dozens of studies from all around the world, Europe, Asia, America, in all different medical journals, and most of them come to very similar results in terms of the mortality risk reduction from exercise. Second, the magnitude of this effect is large. A 40% decrease in mortality risk in people who do aerobic and strength training exercise is an impressive number. If the effect were, say, 2% or 5%, there can be room for interpretation, but it's hard to deny an effect of this magnitude. Third, there's a dose-dependent effect. That is, as you do more exercise, you lower your mortality risk even further. Let's look at these results from a 2022 study in the American Heart Association journal, Circulation. In this figure, the gray line represents moderate physical activity, and it shows us the relationship between physical activity and mortality. We see that as we increase the amount of moderate physical activity from 0 minutes all the way through 900 minutes or 15 hours per week, you continue to see a reduction in the risk of mortality. And scientists and doctors are only starting to uncover the breadth of the positive health effects of exercise. I mean, I think it's commonly accepted that exercise is beneficial for your heart health and in preventing conditions like heart disease and diabetes. But just over the last 5 to 10 years, we're also seeing new studies showing the protective effect of exercise on other diseases like Alzheimer's dementia, cancer, and even eye conditions like glaucoma, cataracts, and macular degeneration. It's clear that exercise improves blood circulation, oxygen delivery to your vital organs, and also improves the efficiency in which our bodies can wash away harmful waste products and toxins from our body. And even beyond the mortality benefit and preventing disease, exercise is vital for maintaining your mobility. This mobility will give us the freedom to live our lives to the fullest even as we get older. Our strength and flexibility is what will allow us to go on hikes, walk our dog, see our family, travel the world, tend to our garden, pick up our grandkids, drive a car, and of course, gives us the autonomy to do even the mundane activities around the house, like showering or preparing food for ourselves without assistance as we get older. So, okay, we get it. Exercise is good. So, how can we optimize our exercise to help us live longer and stay healthy? One of the secrets is Zone 2 training. Zone 2 refers to one of the intensity zones that measures the effort someone is using during their workout. Zone 1 is something like a very easy stroll, while Zone 5 is an all-out sprint. Zone 2 refers to the zone in between a very light and medium workout. Some coaches use heart rate measurements, for example, something like 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate to define Zone 2 exertion. But a good rule of thumb is that if you're in a Zone 2 workout, you'll be able to maintain a conversation, but you'll feel strained while doing it. The reason why Zone 2 exercise is emphasized by trainers, coaches, and doctors is because it has been shown in research studies to confer many benefits, including lowering our resting heart rate, decreasing blood pressure, lowering risk of injury to our joints and muscles, preventing the insulin resistance that we see in diabetes, and improving our ability to complete endurance activities. Zone 2 exercise has also been shown to be particularly effective at helping our mitochondria maintain peak performance. Mitochondria are little organelles in our cells and are responsible for making energy for our cells. You can think of our mitochondria like an engine. We feed them fuel in the form of glucose, and they use that fuel to create energy in the form of ATP, which is used to power our cells' critical functions. When we exercise in Zone 2, we are improving the number and efficiency of our mitochondria, helping to ensure that the engine in each of our cells continues to hum along. Okay, so what's the dosage of exercise and what type of exercise should we aim for? Now, there's a lot of fitness gurus and technology enthusiasts who may prescribe using a heart rate monitor so you can track exactly whether you're doing true Zone 2 training. I personally prefer simplicity and convenience. We're not competing for any Olympic medals or anything. We're just training for longevity while also trying to avoid injury. So we're aiming for light, medium to medium workouts, doing things like a brisk walk or easy jog, or an easy bike ride, or an easy swim. And looking back at the studies we just reviewed, we continue to see additional mortality risk reduction as we do more moderate physical activity per week, all the way through 900 minutes or 15 hours per week. We do see though that the biggest returns on investments come from when you go from 0 to 150 minutes per week of moderate exercise. So that's what we can aim for as a starting point. We can break down this 150 minutes per week into 3 or 4 manageable sessions per week, which equals out to about 45 minutes per session. And that's our goal. We want 45-minute sessions of lightly moderate to moderate exercise 3 to 4 times a week. It sounds simple, and it is, but it requires discipline. I understand. You have work, family, home obligations that are all pulling for your time, but it's up to you to carve out those 45-minute sessions 3 to 4 times a week to focus on exercise, your health, and longevity. Okay, so we covered diet and exercise. There's one last topic I want to discuss that's vital to maintaining both your health and your vision, and that's sleep. When it comes to sleep, we need 2 things: good quality and quantity. When we're able to get enough quality sleep on a consistent basis, it's like the ultimate performance enhancer. Our thoughts are clearer, our mood is brighter, and even our physical abilities are improved. A study from Stanford in 2011 on their men's basketball team showed that after their players were encouraged to sleep 10 hours per night, the players ran faster in both half-court and full-court sprints. Their shooting improved by at least 9% for free throws and three-pointers. And the athletes also reported improved physical and mental well-being. On the flip side, sleep deprivation is a powerful performance reducer. A recent study published in May 2023 looked at the effect of sleep deprivation on retinal surgeons. They took 11 junior retinal surgeon fellows and 11 senior surgeons and had them perform surgical tasks using a surgical simulator. They then deprived each surgeon to 3 hours of sleep overnight and had them repeat the same surgical tasks after being sleep deprived. They found that the junior surgeons took longer to complete the task, had lower measured dexterity, and more severe hand tremors after just 1 night of sleep deprivation. Interestingly, the researchers didn't see the same effects and performance in senior surgeons and theorized that maybe the senior surgeons' increased experience and muscle memory helped them to offset the effects of sleep deprivation. I know we're not all college athletes or surgeons, but sleep has profound effects on the things we all do every day, whether it be driving a car safely, studying for exams, preparing work presentations, or exercising at the gym. Sleep plays a vital role in our health and longevity. Many studies have shown a strong association between poor sleep and type 2 diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, obesity, and dementia. Now, yes, I understand that just because poor sleep is closely linked with these diseases, it doesn't mean that poor sleep is causing these diseases. It's very possible that someone who is unhealthy has poor sleep because they're struggling with many medical conditions. However, many recent studies are providing more and more proof that poor sleep does in fact have a causal role in the development of these diseases. Several different studies have found that sleep deprivation after just a few days causes decreased insulin sensitivity and impaired glucose levels. Depriving yourself of sleep causes changes in the body which mirror what's seen in type 2 diabetes. such as decreased muscle glucose uptake and inadequate glucose-induced insulin secretion. That's right, even if you are a healthy 25-year-old and if you deprive yourself of sleep, you can expect your blood work to look similar to someone who's an obese middle-aged diabetic. To add insult to injury, lack of sleep has also been shown to cause us to overeat. There's two important hormones that help us control how much we eat. One is called ghrelin, or commonly known as the hunger hormone, and it stimulates us to eat. The other hormone is called leptin, which is released by our fat cells and tells our brain, okay, I'm full, I'm satisfied, I can stop eating. This photo shows us an interesting example of the effect of leptin. The mouse on the left has been genetically altered so that it can't make leptin, while the one on the right is a regular mouse. Research studies have shown that when we are sleep deprived, we have decreased levels of leptin, the I'm full hormone, and increased levels of ghrelin, the hunger hormone, which causes us to be irregularly hungry the next day. A recent clinical review looked at all the prior studies on sleep deprivation and food intake and found that on average, when people are sleep deprived, they eat about 300 to 550 calories more per day compared to when they're well rested. So, depriving ourselves of sleep makes our physiology more similar to the mouse on the left compared to the one on the right. Sleep also plays a critical role in maintaining our brain health. In 2013, a Danish neuroscientist named Maiken Nedergaard discovered what she coined the glymphatic system, which is the waste clearance system of the brain and spinal cord. You can think of the glymphatic system kind of like the sewage system of our brain. It's composed of connected channels and cerebrospinal fluid, which the brain uses to wash away harmful metabolic waste. Several research studies have shown that this glymphatic drainage system is activated during deep sleep. And during deep sleep, cerebrospinal fluid rushes along the glymphatic system to deliver key supplies to our brain, while also clearing away unwanted debris. Some of this cellular trash, such as amyloid beta and tau, are toxic and are strongly associated with neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's dementia. So, if we deny ourselves proper amounts of deep sleep, there's more buildup of these harmful waste products in our brains. Research has shown us that improved sleep quality is associated with lower risks of developing cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's dementia. And the development of dementia negatively impacts not only our cognition, but also our vision. As the brain deteriorates in patients with dementia, patients begin to experience sight deficits because the brain is unable to process our visual world. Neuroscientists have found that about 50% of our brain volume is dedicated to visual processing. So it's inevitable that as our brains weaken in dementia, so does our visual perception. Patients with dementia often have poor depth perception and spatial awareness, making it difficult to navigate steps, grab objects, or pour a cup of coffee. Patients with dementia also have reduced peripheral vision as well as difficulty distinguishing colors. Okay, we get it. Sleep is absolutely vital to our long-term physical and cognitive health. Now here are some of the best evidence-based tips and tactics to improve your sleep hygiene and to get better quality sleep. Healthy adults usually need at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. This gives the brain adequate time to go through all the different stages of sleep, including the most important deep sleep stage, which we just discussed. An effective way to optimize your sleep is to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day as often as possible. A regular sleep routine can help regulate the circadian rhythm by aligning the body's natural sleep-wake cycle with the external environment. The circadian rhythm is controlled by an internal biological clock located in the hypothalamus in the brain. The hypothalamus receives input from light-sensitive cells in the retina of the eye, which helps synchronize the internal clock with the external environment. A regular sleep routine in which you go to bed and wake up at the same time every day can help synchronize your internal clock with the external environment. This consistency in the sleep-wake cycle can reinforce the circadian rhythm and improve the quality of sleep. When you maintain a regular sleep routine, your body learns to anticipate sleep at a certain time, and the internal clock adjusts accordingly. As a result, your body begins to release hormones such as melatonin at the appropriate time, which can help induce sleep and improve sleep quality. But disruptions to the sleep routine, such as staying up late or sleeping in on weekends, can throw off the circadian rhythm and lead to sleep problems. So it's important to maintain a consistent sleep routine to help regulate the circadian rhythm and improve overall health and well-being. To help facilitate good quality sleep, we want to optimize our sleep environment. So let's deconstruct an ideal sleep environment. You want it to be as dark and quiet as possible. You can use blackout shades or curtains, or a nice quality sleep mask works great too. If you live in an area where you can't really control the noise, for example, I lived in Manhattan next to a hospital during residency, so there were constant cars honking, ambulances, and sirens going off through the night. which made sleeping tough on some nights. If you're in a similar environment, you can use earplugs or a white noise machine to drown out startling noises. The ambient temperature, or the temperature in your bedroom, is also a critical factor to optimizing sleep. The best room temperature for sleep will vary depending on humidity levels, the amount of clothes you wear to bed, and the thickness of your blankets and comforters. But generally, 65 degrees Fahrenheit or 18.5 degrees Celsius is the sweet spot for most people. It can vary a bit depending on your preferences, but 65 degrees is a good starting point for your room temperature for sleep. Multiple studies have shown that increasing the ambient temperature, which can make your sleep environment stuffy and hot, leads to longer time to sleep onset, less total sleep, more frequent awakenings, and less time in slow wave or deep sleep. With your ambient room temperature set, you also want a nice comfortable comforter or blanket to help you make a little nest as you sleep. This blanket nesting is important to keeping your microenvironment, or the temperature directly around your body, nice and regulated as you sleep. Okay, now that your sleep environment is optimized, there's another habit you can do to improve your sleep, and that is to take advantage of the warm shower effect. Recent research has shown that taking a hot 10-minute shower or bath about 1 hour before bed helps you fall asleep faster and also helps you get better quality sleep. It's all covered in this research article, but the theory behind this is that there's a specific temperature regulation mechanism that occurs when we go to bed. As bedtime approaches, our core temperature begins to drop. Our core temperature, meaning the temperature in our torso and abdomen, usually drops about 1 degree Celsius or 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit as we're sleeping. So, how is our core able to drop its temperature? It uses the blood vessels in our hands and feet. Our hands and feet have a high density of these tiny blood vessels called capillaries. These capillaries play a critical role in regulating our body temperature. As we prepare to go to sleep, the capillaries in our hands and feet dilate, allowing increased blood flow to our extremities. Since we have more blood flowing slowly and hanging out in the dilated capillaries in our extremities, this allows heat to naturally be released into the cooler environment. Remember that our room temperature is cooler than our body temperature. So the blood in our extremities is able to cool down maybe 1 degree Celsius or so. Then this cool blood is returned through our veins back to our core. And as the blood spreads through our organs in our chest and abdomen, our core temperature decreases. Taking a warm shower about an hour before bedtime helps jumpstart the dilation process in our extremities. The warm water will ever so slightly increase the temperature of our skin. The neurons in our skin will then recognize this increase in temperature and send a signal to the thermal regulation centers in our brain, which would then trigger our body to release hormones to stimulate the dilation of blood vessels in our extremities to promote heat release. So, a hot shower jumpstarts the dilation of the capillaries in our hands and feet, which is required for the critical heat release process that allows us to drop our core temperature to give us a comfortable night's sleep. And the clinical research backs this up. A warm shower about an hour before sleep improves physiologic sleep processes and results in a significantly decreased time to onset of sleep and a significant increase in sleep efficiency. These studies on thermal regulation are also clinically relevant, as multiple studies have shown that patients who struggle with insomnia have elevated body temperatures at night compared with those who don't have sleep problems. The next important factor to consider for sleep is your exposure to devices and blue light at night. Blue light exposure during the day can actually be beneficial, as it can help regulate the circadian rhythm and promote wakefulness. Blue light is present in sunlight, and exposure to blue light during the day can help suppress the production of melatonin, the hormone that promotes sleep. This can help keep individuals alert and improve cognitive function during the day. However, exposure to blue light at night can have the opposite effect and interfere with sleep. Multiple studies have shown that exposure to blue and violet light in the evening suppresses melatonin. Electronic devices such as smartphones, tablets, and computers all emit varying levels of blue light. Exposure to these devices at night can interfere with the natural production of melatonin and disrupt the circadian rhythm, making it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. To minimize the negative effects of blue light on sleep, I recommend to limit the use of electronic devices at night, especially in the hours leading up to bedtime. This can help promote the natural production of melatonin and improve sleep quality. Additionally, there are tools and apps available that can help filter out blue light from electronic devices, which can be useful for those who need to use those devices at night. Both iPhones and Android phones have some sort of night mode setting to decrease the blue light emitted by these devices. It's also important to consider your alcohol intake in the hours leading up to bedtime. Alcohol can affect sleep in several ways. It can make you fall asleep faster, but can also disrupt your sleep later in the night. Alcohol reduces the amount of time spent in rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, which is important for memory consolidation and learning. It also increases the number of times you wake up during the night. Drinking alcohol before bed can also cause snoring and sleep apnea. So, although you may be spending the same number of hours in bed after a night of drinking alcohol, your sleep quality won't be as good and you'll feel tired and groggy the next day. So we went through some of the best tactics in terms of diet, exercise, and sleep that you can use to help preserve your vision and your health. Our goal is not just to live longer. I mean, what's the point of living to 100 if you're just stuck in bed, not being able to enjoy your life for the last 10 or 20 years? Our goal is to keep you living healthy and seeing well for as long as possible, so you can continue to have the freedom, the autonomy to do the things you want to do, like driving your car, traveling the world, and spending time with your family. Just by watching this video, you probably know as much as your ophthalmologist or primary care doctor about the latest research and advancements in vision and health longevity. But now that you're armed with this knowledge, what are you going to do with it? There's a famous quote that goes, "Knowledge is power." But I don't think that's quite right. Napoleon Hill has said that knowledge is only potential for power, and I think he's right. Knowledge only becomes power if you take action. Only through actions and good habits will you be able to change the trajectory of your health and your vision. So I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. First, tell me your why. Why do you want to spend all this effort and expense to maintain your vision and health? Is it to maintain independence, like being able to see well enough and to be strong enough to walk around the house, drive your car, do your bills, and travel the world to see all there is to see? Is it to spend time playing with your kids and grandkids? Then tell me 1 to 3 specific habits that you're going to build. Some examples could be throwing out all the high sugar foods and drinks in your pantry, like the cookies, cakes, pies, sodas, and juice, and then replacing them with healthier whole foods and water. Or maybe it'll be committing to 45 minutes of cardiovascular exercise 4 times a week. Or maybe it'll be sticking to a regular sleep routine where you sleep and wake up at the same time each day. And after you post in the comments, I'd love to see your updates and how you're doing on your journey. I'll be cheering you on, and I'm sure other members of the community will be giving you support as well. I think that's enough information for this video. But if you find this video helpful, please give us a like and subscribe for future updates. And if you're in the Los Angeles, Orange County, or Inland Empire area and would like an eye evaluation, feel free to visit our website or give us a call to set up an appointment today. I'm Dr. Michael Chua with Puente Hills Eye Care. See you next time.